Hi, Steve Cooper, Rank Success, and this is another short video in a series of videos that I'm doing for promotion candidates or aspiring leaders in UK police forces. And this video is all about well-being, and I've called it Thriving or Surviving because, you know, how you deal with well-being, your level of awareness around it, your degree of taking responsibility for it and creating the environment for your teams, for your colleagues within a leadership context is really important if the organisation is to achieve its aims and for people to be well at work. So it's a big subject. I alluded to it previously as a biggie, if you like. And it is one. I've got some notes here just to help me have this quick discussion. I'll try and keep these videos limited to no more than 15 minutes. Everything that I talk about in these videos and in my free podcasts and in my free blogs and downloadable guides and in my are in my digital toolkits and 4-hour masterclass, and you can download those at any time. So if you want to take a quantum leap forward and supercharge your promotion preparation, you can. Other than that, I'm going to cover some issues around well-being, just in a discussion way, just pitching them. I try and, rather than teach people, I can't teach people things, but I can make you think about these things, and you can kind of absorb them and slot them into whatever you need to when you're preparing for promotion, and to mix and match with your own experiences and knowledge. So, you know, thriving or surviving, the difference between teams thriving is around the leadership and around how supported they feel, about how the processes and mechanisms and procedures are in place to support that at a wider level. And as sergeants, inspectors, chief inspectors, you are right in the mix of all of that. So I just want to talk about the topic of well-being, and just to kind of focus in on the CVF level 2, because you know, well-being is linked to the competency framework. It's linked to the descriptors of those competencies, which actually articulate how you're expected to behave, and these are the behaviours that are assessed on promotion, so in promotion selection processes. So one of the lines in the one of the bullet points, one of the descriptors for we're emotionally aware in CVF is, I take responsibility for helping to ensure the emotional well-being of those on my teams. That's a big undertaking, that you take responsibility for helping to ensure the emotional well-being of those on your teams. So that's one of the bullet point descriptors on we're emotionally aware. So what they're looking for you to do is to talk about what you've done, how you've done it, and why you've done it. So when we talk about well-being generally, often people rush straight in with their evidence around, this is the issue, this is what I did, this is how I did it, and often lose the human element in that. So what I mean by that is, I'll ask people to tell me what's important about well-being. And it's to make sure I take responsibility for the mental health of the individuals on my team. And people sometimes present that in writing, and I will say, well, why? And that's often missing. It's missing off the sentence. So it's just a statement. I take responsibility. Why? Because it's part of my role. I really do care about people and the individuals on my team. I understand it as a leadership responsibility. I want to work in an environment where people are able to innovate and thrive and excel as individuals. I want them to look forward to coming to work. I understand that, you know, human beings, you know, well-being and wellness is not just about work. Humans have different aspects to being well and well-being. So mental health, spiritual well-being, financial well-being, their financial position, physical, their quality of life, their emotional awareness, and their emotional health. So humans are have different aspects of wellness. And sometimes I have to kind of slow the conversation down, develop it and broaden it, because often task-led cops are, yep, I understand the competency, Steve, let's get on with it. This is the situation I've done. But whoa, hold it back. Why? What was important about that? Okay, and how did that play out? How did that develop? Tell me some more about that. And that's exactly what a promotion board will do with you. They'll ask you a question. Give us an example of when you've taken responsibility for the welfare of your team, or some other question around that. You'll find lots of questions in my digital toolkit, and it will be aligned to the competency, and they will say, oh, tell us a bit more about that. Who else was involved in that? And okay, and what did you do? And why were you doing that? So again, slowing time down just to think about that and to try and link this to the role. So for a sergeant, welfare is, managing the welfare of your team is pretty fundamental to the role. But it's only one dimension. It's only one function of the sergeant's role. So you've got other functions. So training your staff, that may well be linked to their well-being and their welfare. CPD, definitely. Helping them achieve their dreams and their hopes and their aspirations and their own goals in the organisation. Whether that's to become dog handlers, SIOs, or detectives. You're a part of that journey, and that's linked to their welfare. So giving them opportunities to learn and to grow and to develop is important. That can be all part of their well-being. Other elements of the sergeant's role are briefing, keeping people communicating, make sure they've got the information they need to do their job, and giving them good briefings, keeping them informed, particularly around change, another part of the sergeant's role. And when I say sergeant, it's inspector and chief inspector as well. Leadership. That's what we're talking about for people, performance and change. So those three areas link to welfare and well-being as well. People, performance issues and the performance regime or pressures around that, and change. Change is one of those issues that really do impact on people. So managing your team and spending some time to think through, to talk through, to communicate, which is where change often falls down, and making sure, most people want to know with changes, and there's lots of it going on in police at the moment, am I part of the future? Where will I fit in? So all that uncertainty around that, and often it can be disproportionate to the changes that are proposed, but the communication that comes can really link to people's welfare, anxiety. So we're hitting really hard on some of these elements of leadership and expectations around you as a junior or middle manager, or and understanding your responsibilities around that. And that's what a promotion board will be asking you about. So do you care for your team? What do I mean by that? Do you actually look out for them as individuals? Do you spend time having one-to-ones with them? What happens in those one-to-ones? Are they structured? Are they unstructured? Do you talk about work control? Probably not. So getting to understand and using that time, if you do, and I do understand the pressures are there where, people often say to me, Steve, one-to-ones, really? I don't get a chance to do those very often. I say, okay, so how might that play out in terms of the welfare of and expectations of your teams? And when you start doing that thinking and reflecting, you understand that making time for individuals, finding time for individuals is important for connection. And when you connect, you get to the heart of the issues, motivation, inspiration, and looking out for people. Things like, authorising leave, understanding them as individuals if you can, to the best of your ability, understanding what their goals are, what do they want to achieve in the organisation. Are they meeting the expectations of their role? If not, why not? Can you support them in relation to that? And if so, what can you do? And you're not on your own with all of this. There are organisations, there are resources, Police Federation, Oscar Kilo, and organisational policies, as well as you making use of those. All of this is important. So, just making that environment one in which people look forward to coming to work is a key part of your link to making the psychological safe space. And that's another theme that if you want to go and research that, psychological safety, making sure that people are able to come to work and that they are not intimidated, they are not unhappy, they are able to come to work and give their best, to be themselves, to be who they are, to be able to speak up, to be able to challenge you and other leaders, to have their view heard. Now that's either just a concept or it's something you take seriously and make happen. And again, I'm just getting you to think. This is just food for thought. I'm not being prescriptive in any way here. So creating that environment in which people look forward to coming to work, and a culture around that, because if you think about it, people often talk about the policing culture, and if you're thinking about your role in it, you could take the view that there is no such thing as culture. The culture only is embedded in the posts of sergeant, inspector, chief inspector, leaders and managers, because if you go home, and I think I've alluded to this in previous videos before, when everybody goes home, the only thing left in the station or the building are computer terminals, chairs and furniture. The culture comes in with the individuals when they occupy the roles and they sit down and start behaving in the workplace. So how does that link to well-being and welfare? And what's your role in that? What do you know about that? Because we're talking about emotional awareness. That's one of the competencies. We're emotionally aware. That's around your social awareness, your degree of awareness of within the organisation, your degree of empathy, and your ability to build relationships and trust. So it's not just about a competency, and all of this is kind of linked in with people's well-being. So some of the other descriptors around looking after health and well-being of your team under that competency, we're emotionally aware. I said the first one, that you take responsibility. The wording of it is, I take responsibility for helping to ensure the emotional well-being of those on my teams. So to do that, you have to manage your own. You need to have that ability to manage your own emotions in order to be able to manage other people's. And that links in with some of the other descriptors. So can you adapt your style and approach to the needs of the people that you're working with? Okay, if I was coaching, I would say, well, tell me about that. When have you done that? How have you done that? Okay, and you'd be able to develop an example for promotion, be able to talk about it comfortably. I encourage reflective practice, and I take time to support others to understand reactions and behaviours. So we're alluding to those reactions of people. Issues are difficult. Dealing with people, supporting people is difficult. None of this is easy. It's all nicely tagged well-being and welfare at work. Drill down under that a little bit, and there are human issues, human challenges. How will you deal with those as a leader, as a manager, as a supervisor? So if you can't spend some time to reflect on this and think through it, how will you be able to encourage those behaviours in other people? And often doing that relies and links back to the relationships you've built, the environment you create, and the responsibility that you take in the role that you occupy or will occupy when you're successfully promoted. And I take responsibility to deal with any inappropriate behaviours. So having identified them, dealing with them meaningfully, hopefully nipping them in the bud, or supporting people at early opportunities, early interventions to help them do their job and to be the best they can and operate in that environment at work. So there's quite a lot of food for thought there in what I've just covered, but just bringing it back to the importance of well-being and the responsibility that you will have as a leader, as a manager, as a supervisor. Have a look at that, have a think through it. I've covered some examples, some detailed examples around these issues, supporting people. There's lots of them in my guides, which you can download and use to support your preparation and do some meaningful and effective preparation for promotion. And I hope you found that useful, and certainly as food for thought to trigger some thoughts and ideas that you can kind of link to your own experience and hopefully present some meaningful evidence. And I will be doing some other videos, and until then I look forward to speaking to you again. Take care, stay safe.